Welcome everyone to another episode of LPF Debrief, where Chris and I talk about comic books, TV shows, and movies. And on today's episode, we are going to be discussing episode 4 of The Last of Us on HBO Max. This one was directed by Jeremy Webb. The fourth episode of the series. We are flying through this. It feels like Sundays come up very quickly. And for a fun fact, if you guys didn't know, the next episode, which episode 5, is actually going to be airing um, on Friday, which I think is really cool because they're dodging the Super Bowl, which you should do. Like, and I think now that we're in a streaming service line where um, not as many people are watching these kind of shows on public TV or like live at the time, moving it to Friday so the people who do watch it live don't have to feel conflicted on watching the Super Bowl or watching Last of Us. You can just, target all your things. It's kind of a win-win, honestly, because you're not pulling people away from the Super Bowl. So, and you're not forced to, try to, you still can get your numbers up. So, just wanted to say that was a smart move on their part. There will be spoilers ahead, guys, and if you let us know how you guys felt about the episode, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. The engagement stuff really helps the algorithm and us getting viewed some more. So now that we are done with that lengthy intro, let's go ahead and talk about episode 4 of Last of Us. Chris, what were your thoughts? What were you feeling? How'd you feel throughout the episode? Let us know.
First things first, for audio listeners, I sound stuffy. It's a
Yes, you do.
allergy. It's a allergy morning for me. And same thing with video, guys. If you see me muted and moving and jerking around, it's because I'm sneezing. So anyway,
Hey,
um,
you do what you got to do, bro.
dude, I got to get
You're
this
here.
review out there. The people got to know. All
Exactly.
right,
The people need to know.
you need to be debriefed. Anyway, but the episode was good. Um, Felt very fast to me. We just kind of got through it.
I'd say the reason that was because we were so used to the episodes being an hour and a half.
Yeah, and
So
this one
like
was
episode
57.
1,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
credits, probably 45 minutes, I guess.
Yeah. So episode 1 was an hour, like a legit hour 30. And
Yeah.
then the episode 3 was like an hour and 27 minutes. So I could see why you felt that way. But go ahead.
Yeah, but I can see people getting or complaining about this episode being short, or being, I guess, another it progressed the story a bit, especially for how it ended and where the next episode is going. I'm gonna be very excited because this is what I've been talking about for a while. Is where these two characters came in. Um, but yeah, this episode just kind of furthered Joel and Ellie's relationship more. Um, I also wanted to point out, I've been saying that in the game, right? I thought in the beginning, I got to replay the first one because it's been forever. I thought before he meets Ellie, for some reason, I thought you fought Tommy in the first game. You do not. That is
Hmm.
not Tommy. I think it's the guy who ends up getting shot in the hallway.
Yeah.
That leads you on. I thought that was Tommy for some reason, and then I was like, wait, isn't Tommy? I mean, spoilers, not spoiler. I'm not gonna spoil that, but um, but yeah, I had that wrong, so I apologize. So they didn't change anything in the beginning. Well, they changed it, but not really. But in this one, the we kind of find out Ellie is, in my opinion, like the dorky lame kid, which is kind of cute. It's
Mm.
the jokes that she tries to make, the book and everything, trying to make a fun road trip out of it. She knows the world is ended, but that's not gonna stop her from being a kid. And we definitely get those moments, and I really enjoyed it. Um,
And the thing also with Ellie is that she is sheltered, and that's what a lot of people. So a lot of the things that she knows is only based off of what the Fedra, like what Fedra is. So socially, obviously, I mean, even in a time of an apocalypse, right?
yeah,
Even when you have kids who are not usually associated with other kids, because Ellie speaks very like has very vulgar. She's because she wasn't surrounded by other kids, right? So but well, not that many. So when she comes out as like kind of being like this dorky kid, it's because she was inside and she doesn't know, she hasn't seen a lot of the things in the thing. And it's just like when they're arguing about the map and she's like, dude, this is only my second time in a car, like, you know what I mean? Like what do you want from me? Like, give me a break. And that's things that Joel has to remember too in that relationship, because it's like, oh, you are dealing with someone who just hasn't been outdoors like you have been, and probably, you know, more than likely, if we do the time frame right, she grew up in this apocalypse and not in the world that Joel grew up in. So I think the way they're portraying Ellie obviously is the way they did it in the game, but the way that Bella Ramsey is performing, that being that kid that's very like, you know, I like very what's the word I'm looking for? I can't find it right now, but very like she's very, you know, damn, what's the word I'm looking for? But like she's looking like she's very she's looking like, you know, very surprised by things, right? Um she's very like, you know, like, oh my god, like this is a new thing, or oh my god, like, you know what I mean? So she's very surprised by a lot of things, and that's why, because she hasn't been out. So I think she's playing that perfectly, and just the way that their communication is happening, and the way that Joel is also starting to pick up on like little things like that, being like, oh snap, yeah, you're right, like this is only your second time in a car, like, you know. So I think it's pretty cool.
One thing I wanted to point out was something very early on. So they're driving around. When they pull over to go camping, I did not expect them to sleep in the woods like that. I wouldn't have done that. As soon as they were like putting the sleep in, I was like, wait, they're sleeping outside of the truck? What the
Hmm.
hell? So, um,
And
very
remember,
tense.
I mean, even Joel didn't even during that scene, he didn't really even sleep, right? Because of what you're saying, like, because, and even the conversation they had before like Ellie actually went to bed,
Yeah.
he's just kind of like, yeah, like no one's gonna come out here, but he's like, I don't know that, like, you
Yeah,
know what I
I have
mean?
no
Like,
idea.
you know what I mean? We leave tire marks on the grass, like
Yeah.
anyone can show up. So, you know, like he doesn't get much sleep, even though that's what his goal was. He still showing that caring fatherly like thing, even though he's still a bit closed off, but he was more doing it. So he was more doing the sleep for Ellie, and then also he was being that protector still for Ellie, even though he knows he needed some sleep, but he knows that it's really important to make sure he protects her for multiple reasons, but also that he's like Ellie's growing on her, growing on him, and you can see it.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, like I said, the whole episode was that is them building the relationship more. Um, but then we get into the city, right? And I thought, for some reason, I don't know. I guess I thought we were gonna see more infected. I mean, also that scene of like that little, I called them the people, but the, I don't know what to call them.
Which
That
one?
the lady with all her mercenaries, not
Yeah,
mercenaries. Yeah,
I mean,
mercs.
they are kind of, yeah, because they basically take Kathleen. She basically took over. They took over a what you call it? They took over a Fedra, uh, whatever they're called,
Oh
the
yes,
stations.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
forgot. Yeah, but they basically took that over and now are running their things the way that, you know, they want to. So, um, yeah. So that's why it's very aggressive. Like, and she's looking for someone. So.
Yeah, and it makes sense too now because whenever they go for a raid and I saw them busting down doors, I was like, man, they
Mhm.
don't even care that infected's around. Like, what's
Yeah.
going on? Um, it was a cool, it was a fun action scene, especially when you see the two guys and Joel runs past them. That
Mhm.
little gun scene immediately felt like the game where you're just hiding
Yeah.
behind the truck, waiting for your shot, and you're like, all right, pop up, wing
Yep.
one, and the guy yelling at Joel when he
Mhm.
kills somebody, like just like the game, they're zoomed in and you hear the
Yeah.
voice in the background. He's like, "You mother," like
Yeah.
yelling at him. I thought it was a lot of fun. It puts you in back in the. It's kind of like whenever we were reviewing Halo, and we were talking about the fighting scenes and how it felt like the game, like it goes into first
Mhm.
person mode. But this one felt like, you did take somebody out. The camera's focused on Joel, and you're hearing the yelling, so it puts you in that game mode mindset for the people that have played the game. Um, and what was it? Seeing Ellie go through everything she like the emotion she has to go through of her first fight. Not really first fight, but just like, okay, now Infected's not attacking me, but it's actual people, and I don't understand why we're doing this or why they're doing this, and it just that this whole scene just goes into a further rabbit hole for her of her actually saving Joel and that guy pleading for his life, and she's just like, I trust him, but Joel
Yeah.
knows like he can't because he's gonna say, you know, oh, we could be friends now, and then as soon as he leaves, you have 30 and you're outnumbered, and he's gonna take you out no problem. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And it goes back to what I was saying about Ellie being like, being sheltered and not knowing about situations like that, right? Like
yeah,
she doesn't know she even when that scene begins, right? Where it's basically like where that scene starts where she's like, aren't we going to help him? And he's like, Joel's instantly like, no, like there's no way, because Joel knows, because he's like, we find out later on in the episode, Joel has been on that side of where he's tricked people into thinking they needed help because they were desperate, right? So Joel instantly gets that like PSD moment where he's just like, oh no, there's no way that I can help this dude out, because in my mind, I've done this before and I ended up, killing the people that were in the thing that had the resources we need. So that whole scene was amazing just because of basically the scenario that they're going through, right? Like, um, Ellie's seeing this for the first time. Joel is like, I know what this situation might occur, what might happen here. So there's no way I'm going to help this dude out. And then we see how equipped they are when, even though they don't help the dude out, they got the tire thing, so they pop their tires. But even before we get to that, I wanted to point out that scene where she has the magazine, and they
oh, in the
literally
bathroom,
pulled
yeah.
that word for word from the game. And I think IGN did a really cool like side, not even like, they did like a up and down pretty much of like the scene side to side, word for word. Like it was awesome, like just to see moments like that, because if you remember the game and just hearing those things get called out, like where it's just like, hey, like, what I mean? Like, he's like, yeah, don't touch that. Like, she's like, I want to see what all the fuss is about. Like, it's legit exact. So it was pretty awesome that they're the way that they pay homage to this. And like you were saying, once that scene, because that car crash scene, if I'm not mistaken, does happen in the game. It's been a long time since I played
Yeah,
part
I gotta
one,
play the
but
first one. Like
yeah,
that's what this episode reminded me of,
but
or the last one too. I
part
was like, I
one,
gotta play.
I'm almost like, I'm pretty like, I want to say I'm pretty like, you do that scene that they were in, because you end up in that grocery store, and then you have to like go out, and then some infected like
All
as you're going through.
all I remember is that you in the game, the truck's pulled out. Something happens. You're in the city. That shot of like, is this a? Whenever she's like, is this isn't this a federal location, right?
Hmm.
And you see the wall. That's when
Yeah.
you see the two brothers, and
Hmm.
they're being shot at. You see lights. It's
Yeah.
at night and everything like that, and that's when they run into each other.
Yeah.
So that's what I
So
remember. That's the only part I remember really.
yeah, so that happens, and basically, the gunfight is just like the game, right? Waiting, being patient, like waiting for someone to poke out, shooting them. I love that they showed that, because that's what a real gunfight would be anyway, right? It's not like, um, you
You're getting
know,
shot at, getting
you're
hit
not getting
30
shot
times in
at,
the
but
chest,
also,
and you're just walking
yeah,
down
but
the
also
street.
these, also some of these guys, even though they've taken over things, they're not really military trained, right? Like, they're trying to be like a militia, but they're not essentially one of those. So some of their tactics are going to be off, things like that. Joe trying to protect Ellie tells her, hey, go into this hole. Like, I don't want you to have to deal with any of this. They're not going to shoot at you, which he was right. And then, of course, you know, um, the scene where the guy comes out and is just like, Joel thinks that everything's over. He goes ahead and that happens. And I think that's this scene, like I was saying, goes back to what I we were talking about, just how everything basically Ellie being a sheltered person, not knowing the harms, but she notices that the person that's been protecting her is now in trouble, and that she needs to do something, right, to help him out. So she ends up, having that knife, doing that, you know what I mean, doing that, doing the whole thing where basically she's like, I'm in this predicament that I need to help this dude out. Like, what I mean? So, and then she has the gun that she got from
She thought about
Bills.
knife first,
Yeah.
and I'm
She
glad she
thought
did
about the
not go
knife.
with the knife because I think she
Yeah,
would have been
because that would have
thrown
been
into
worse.
another wall like
Yeah,
Joel threw her into a wall.
exactly. So she would have, that would have happened. And then after that, basically, things are happening basically, and she's like, ends up shooting him. The guy ends up being paralyzed, and it's kind of like, she didn't do a kill shot, and it's kind of a teaching moment, because now Ellie and Joel are basically like, Joel's like, where'd you get that gun from? Like, I didn't want you to have a gun, so that you weren't in this, like, basically in this kind of situation. And then of course, Joel knows he has to finish this off. Like, he can't just let this guy, call his people in. He doesn't know how many people there are, right? And like we've said in the beginning, in the like, one of the biggest issues with apocalyptic stuff, especially when you're dealing with like zombies or infected or whatever, the biggest issue is always the humans, because you don't know how they're going to react to you being there,
Yeah.
right? Like, are they going to be friendly? Can you trust them? Like, and that's why the episode beforehand, right, where we see Bill, and where, the way he reacted, but how cautious he was to bringing people in, right?
Because everybody
But you can
wants
see
something. Yeah.
something, right? So they come in, the way that they treated them was completely different to how these guys were going to treat them, right? So I think that's why it was great that we had these episodes back to back, because you saw two different versions of how people can treat you in this apocalyptic world,
Yeah.
right? So that to me was really cool. Just the whole scene. Joe finishes it off, and then after that, you're kind of like, Joe, like in lecture mode, right? Where it's just like, hey, like, you shouldn't have been put in that situation. That guy kind of creeped up on me. This and that, like, things of that nature, right? So the scene itself in general was just really good, but it was also captive on what we talked about, how everyone is kind of like, how Ellie and Joel are being able to have these kind of conversations also, where Joel is just not, because you could hear it in his tone, right? He wasn't even nearly as upset as he was previously with her, where he was like really upset just talking to her and stuff like that, like really angrily. So it showed growth, but it also showed teaching moments, and that now Joel is more willing to teach Ellie about moments like that. And we have the whole thing where he's like, you know what, you can keep the gun. Like, you show that you can use it. You show that you weren't afraid to it. Like, and he knows now that Ellie has his back. So all
Well,
of that is
he
pretty
trusts
cool.
her, and then she immediately betrays the trust by, like, he's like, put the gun in your backpack,
Yeah.
and then she
But
looks
I
at
mean,
him
of
and then
course,
puts it in her pocket. I was like, oh my
she's going to be that person. Like,
god. I
you
totally
know,
thought it was gonna end
but
up being like, it's kind of funny that it put us in the situation because it feels like just like the game where I try to predict everything, and I'm like, oh, the gun's gonna go off in her pocket, and they're gonna get
yeah.
caught or something like that. So
Yeah, everything. I mean, they were pretty. Yeah, but I agree with Ellie. I'm not putting that in my pack. Like, I'm gonna have to take, like, if I'm in a situation, I'm gonna have to take off my backpack to get the gun out. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think that's a really the smartest idea. So I'm not mad at it at all.
yeah. Um, I also wanted to say that those guys, so the guys that attack them aren't bad guys, right? Everybody's just trying to
They just
survive,
don't
and
know the situation right
and
now, too.
they really show both sides of, like, you know, Ellie and Joel think like these guys are raiders, like they're just willing to kill anybody, and then you see their side that they're hunting for somebody because of it's a revenge story for somebody else. This guy, they think this guy wronged them, and they're looking for him. We also see the whole, what was it, man? The whenever you were talking about, these guys aren't trained, they made sure to show that because they showed a shot of like everybody meeting up, and it zooms in on a woman, like an older woman with a with the military hat on, and I'm like, she does not
Yes.
look ready to
Yeah.
do any of this. Like, she's just like, they're just trying to survive, and you really see that. I wanted to point out too before I forgot that the guy, his name is Perry. The what's her name's what's the lady, the leader's name?
Kathleen.
Kathleen. That's her right hand man. He is the
Yeah.
voice actor of Tommy in the game,
Yep.
and I thought that was really
Hmm.
cool. Yeah. So there's more. I'm glad that these guys are showing up. Still waiting on we're still
Hmm.
waiting on the original Joel and Ellie to show up, and I'm glad it wasn't. I thought they were gonna pull my leg and make them be the, instead of being brothers, it was gonna be a brother sister moment, and
Hmm.
it'd be those two, and I'd be like, that is a very savage move. So I'm glad they
Hmm.
didn't do that. So yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, so pretty much it's been pretty cool. Like, just I love that they are bringing the original voice actors into certain roles, right? Like, I think we've seen one every episode, if I'm not mistaken, that's been besides episode 3, but we've seen like a voice actor from the original game
Yeah.
being inside of the show, and I think that's really cool because you know they're also the great people to learn from, like as for the actors to have that kind of support, like even if they're not playing their roles, at least like they get to be a part of this game that they hold very dearly, right? And I think this whole medium of where the way that people kind of like shun those things out, I think this is the best way to do it. Like if you're not going to hire them to be the characters, at least put them in the show. Like, you know what I mean? Have them in there, have them part of the team because they went through this story already, right? Like they know what emotions need to be carried because we've seen them do it, right? Or heard them do it. So and some of them, with the mocap and how everything is nowadays, overall though, like I love that they're doing that. Kathleen Savage, she's pretty much they're looking for what's his name? Forget his name off the top of my head. I have it here. Give me a minute.
What's
They're looking for Henry.
Henry? Yes.
Yeah, they're looking for Henry,
What else is
and
she from?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Okay, I've seen her before. She like it's she's a good character because naturally she just looks sweet.
Hmm.
The way she talks is sweet, but she's very, in this one she's just like, this is a different world. I'm not
Yeah.
sympathetic. I mean, you can see with the whole like, hey, what if I have a doctor? Could he save them? And they're like, no, unfortunately not. She's like, okay, I
Yeah.
have no use for him, and she goes and
Hmm.
takes him out. So it's like, it's yeah,
Yeah.
she's a beast.
She's pretty savage. So like things like that are happening. Um, things like that are happening, and it's pretty cool to see just how everything's unfolding. So like even though this episode was shorter, I feel like we learned a lot about the characters and how everything is being portrayed. So I think they did a good job at just showing the militia and showing, even though they've taken over Ephedra and they talked about this at the end of the episode that sometimes the people that take command over are actually going to be worse, right? And like you could see when she's basically sends out this manhunt to find Joel, right? Or because she thinks Joel's associated with Henry, not knowing, not asking any questions. She's just like, I need you to find them because they're going to disrupt whatever we have planned here. We don't know exactly what's going on here. We don't know what their motives are, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah.
overall, I thought it was that whole scene and the way that they interacted with each other, even though they haven't even seen each other yet, it was very telling on what we're going to get this next episode, right? But before we even talk about the next episode, we saw pretty much everything that was going down. When they go into the house, Joel is pretty aware of what everything that needs to happen on how he needs to move and stuff like that. So it is pretty cool that they go through the house, they go through the apartment, go to the top floor. He's like, they have that funny moment again where it's just basically like, get up, old man. Like, she's like, he's like, I'm 56 or whatever, and like, their rapport is really being built there, right?
Yeah.
And they try to take a nap, and I'm not going to say the name of the characters because obviously they're good. Like everyone's going to meet them. But if you played the games, you know who the characters are. But basically, the Joel's so-called method of where if he's going to hear it, and it was foreshadowed, right? Because Ellie totally gave it away. Ellie was
Yeah.
like, "You're going to be able to hear that," and then he was like, "Yeah, of course, that's the point." And then being a smartass, and then actually didn't. But before we get into that scene, also the great joke with the the
Did you know diarrhea is
yeah,
hereditary? And he's like, what?
exactly,
And he's
because
like,
it
yeah,
runs in your
it runs in your
and then
gene.
them having that laughing moment was really really nice before obviously they get guns drawn on them. So I thought again this was a really, like you were talking about, build a lot of rapport between those two characters,
Yes.
much needed because again, uh Chris and I know what's going to happen, but that
Maybe
kind of
they
stuff,
might change
yeah.
it, but I
I
for
mean,
this, I don't.
I
Yeah.
doubt they changed that part.
No.
That
They
part they're
yeah.
not changing.
Hmm.
But but basically building that rapport is important, right? Because you want to have that feeling and have that sense of connection with them. And I think they're doing a good job there. And then two characters show up and pull them at gunpoint, and you can tell like she's like Joel, like like at first you think it's nothing, and then but you could hear it in her voice, and then she's like Joel, like get up, and then she's like look around, you know, and guns undrawn. So I'm really excited for the next episode because that's probably within The Last of Us, their story is probably one of my favorite stories.
Buckle up, man. It
Yeah.
actually goes by pretty quick in the
Hmm.
game. That
Yeah.
part of the story, I remember going through it, and then you get to the next scene, and I'm like, wait, what? What's going on? Also wanted to point out the big thing that underneath the garage,
Hmm.
where he's like, you need to see this, and you see the thing move. That's not. That's new, right? You
It's
know?
not real. And well, the thing that's coming is out entrance is new, but it's not like we've seen the whole. It just wasn't as dramatic.
Okay, I couldn't remember
Yeah,
what it was.
but
See, I
it
gotta play the
yeah.
first one again.
I'll tell you. Yeah, I'll tell you what
Ugh.
it is off. But it's one of the different type of infected.
Yeah, so that's the biggest complaint I've heard so far about the show. Um, Everybody loves the show. It's just that they wish they saw. Uh, I explained it where in the game you need mini bosses, and they've been getting upset that they don't see the mini bosses. So with like
I
episode
mean,
3, uh, in the game, I mean obviously they changed 3 like how it goes in the game. You meet Bill, um, but you have like a little bit of a mini boss. You have a bigger infected or anything like that. Different infected show up in the
yeah,
game, and people are like, "Oh, we didn't get that." And I was like, "Well, because it's like it's for us
but
because
it's
they
also
need to
not
bring."
over.
Yeah, it's not over,
Like,
but I'm saying like they're not gonna just throw all these different
but also
types
it's
at
yeah,
them
you're
for a
not gonna
mini
just.
boss. Like it's not.
But also, it wouldn't make sense in that area
That's what I'm
because
saying.
Bill's area, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
like Bill's area is well protected and well fenced off
yeah.
and is in an isolated location. Like it's not going to again, this is where, like I said, it doesn't have to be exact. There's things that you have to follow like for TV that you have to follow and like rules that like if they're gonna put Bill in a secluded area to build this relationship, then you're not gonna get a mini boss in that same area. It wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, I think that's probably yeah. You have anything? What was your favorite part of the episode?
Favorite part of the episode. Oh man, I don't know if you guys have noticed. I've been struggling this whole series to find a favorite part because the whole show is just great. Um, Probably that laughing scene. I thought it was
Yeah,
very sweet that we saw Joel finally laugh and smile a little bit, and he's like, that joke was so bad, dad jokes save the world as bad as they are.
they are
We
pretty bad,
Yeah,
but that one I crack up because it was a good one.
yeah.
I love dad jokes, man.
Um, yeah, and then I just wanted to say sorry for me sounding like crap because I am feeling it. Ugh.
I think you're good, man. Yeah, like I said, it is tough to find just one part that you particularly like.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, the rapport building for me was generally my favorite. I like an episode like this because I again you need to care for these characters. And this episode definitely showed that relationship for us caring for the two, right? So I think they did a good job at showing that off. Obviously, the first three episodes were also like very intense, like, for multiple reasons. So I can get why people might have felt a certain kind of way about this episode. But even then, this was very intense. And I'm just always wanting more. Every time the episode ends, I want another one. And I'm glad that we get to do it weekly. But hey, we get this one on Friday. So that's going to be a good thing. So that's going to wrap it up for us. This one's going to be a little bit shorter because the episode was. But beside, again, guys, like, comment, let us know what you guys thought of the episode, so we can comment and all that stuff. All right. So until next time, fire